Hey there YouTube, I am now filming this video for the second time because I kept saying and I remember. Let's begin. I want to tell the story of my pregnancy and my labor and delivery story and a little bit of my postpartum story. I found out on Valentine's Day of 2016 that I was pregnant. I had stomach issues and I went to an urgent care and they tested me for H. pylori and pregnancy, which both came out positive. Well, for full transparency, the news that I was pregnant was not good news at first. So, I keep wanting to say But that being said, my son's dad and I decided to do what was best for our son. I'm just going to adjust the camera here. And we broke up and we tried in the middle of my pregnancy to make it work, and then we broke up when I was about 8 months pregnant. He is a great dad. He's very much involved in my son's life. I love him to pieces. It's just not that type of love anymore. And that's all I want to say about that. But I felt like it was crucial in the story, especially now that I'm engaged and I'm happy. And my son still has two parents and a bonus dad, a future bonus dad that we all three love him more than anything. Now, my pregnancy was not easy. I was sick a lot. I was nauseous all the time. And I had classic morning sickness. I was always sick in the morning, and I could eat at night. But I only started actually throwing up during my second trimester. When they say that stuff is supposed to get better, I started actually getting sick because at that point I just didn't care anymore and I just wanted to feel better. Well, at about 14 weeks, I had to go to the hospital because I started having spotting. And everything was fine. They didn't know what caused the spotting. The baby was okay and I was okay. And that was the first ultrasound that my son's dad had seen. I'd had one at about 8.5 weeks. And then I had one then at like 20 weeks, which was the anatomy scan. And I thought my whole pregnancy I was having a girl. Because I was the only one, me and my mom were the only two that found out at the ultrasound. Because my son's dad didn't want to know. Because we were going to do a gender reveal for his family. And we decided, I had to find out. And we were just going to do it for his family. We were going to find out. He decided not to because he wanted to be surprised. So, and I went in there saying, I thought it was a girl. And then right before I went in, I said, it's going to be a boy. And I just knew. And everyone was telling me, you're having a boy. One of my aunts actually had a dream that my grandmother came to her. My grandmother's deceased, and told her that I was pregnant and I was having a boy. When apparently I was about 2 weeks pregnant. A week or two pregnant when she had this dream, and then she found out about a month and a half later that I was pregnant, so she knew it was going to be a boy. But everything was fine. The rest of my pregnancy was pretty rough. I was out of breath a lot. My back hurt so bad. My back and feet hurt so bad because I work full time, and I worked full time up until the point where my boss said, you have to go home. Like, he was terrified I was going to end up having this baby, while I was at work, or I was going to be there, God forbid, by myself, and my water was going to break, or something crazy like that. Because I was having Braxton Hicks, I was doing the swing, I was ginormous, and I just was tired all the time. I would sleep for 12 hours straight when I was pregnant. So we found out we were having a boy, and I went on maternity leave, and I had him I was about 38 and a half weeks when I took my maternity leave. And then he didn't come on his own. And when I was 40 weeks and 1 day, it was October 5th. So I found out on Valentine's Day I was pregnant. October 5th, I got admitted into the hospital, and they wanted to start the delivery process. And they did Cervidil in my cervix. And I remember I had cramping that night. It was like period cramps, but it wasn't that bad. It was just kind of like, oh, kind of hurts a little bit. Well, the next day, they started me on Pitocin, and my contractions got a lot worse. I was about a 3, and I was crying every time I had a contraction. Every time the nurses or doctors checked me, I'd be screaming. It hurt so bad. There was so much pressure. One of the nurses had really big hands, so I called her gorilla hands. Not to her face, but I said, the nurse has gorilla hands. And every time she checked me, I said, look, I know you're just doing your job, but I hate you so much right now. Every time you touch me, it hurts. And she said, I know, but I'm going to make you feel better. And they didn't break my water yet, and I was at about a 3. And so they gave me my epidural, which really wasn't bad at all. The worst part about it was when the anesthetic first goes into your spine, it burns. That was the worst part about it. It was, I had a very good experience getting my epidural. It was a breeze. And I remember, because they broke my water before they did the epidural, like right before. I think I said they did it after, but they didn't. They did it before. But I know women say that it's like a gushing sensation. It wasn't like that at all. And so that's what I was expecting. And I'm like, okay, that wasn't that much fluid. Well, when I was sitting there getting my epidural, I kept feeling like I had to pee. And she goes, you're okay, just go. Like, you have stuff underneath you. It's fine. And I did. And then I said, I have to go again. And she's like, it's okay, go ahead. So I went again. And when I got, after they were done with the epidural and I was able to stand back up, I looked and it wasn't urine. It was amniotic fluid. I can't really describe it other than it just being a clear liquid, and you can definitely tell the difference. I got my epidural, and I mean, it was a breeze after that. I slept the whole time, except for when they were coming in every hour to check me. Them checking me no longer hurt. I was completely numb from about the chest down. I could feel when someone touched me, but I mean, you could touch me hard and I couldn't feel it. And so, I went in, had the Cervidil on Wednesday the 5th. Thursday the 6th, I was in labor all day. They did the Pitocin, they broke my water, all that. Friday morning comes around, and it was about 4 o'clock in the morning, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and the nurse came in, and she said, well, the baby's heart rate is dropping, and you're not progressing. I dilated to about a 6, and I would not dilate anymore. They tried for hours, nothing would happen. So they decided it would be best to have a C-section. I was terrified because I kind of had a feeling, because I researched both, because I knew that a C-section was possible if I couldn't deliver vaginally. So I guess a part of me just knew, because I guess I researched that a little bit more than vaginal delivery. So I guess there's just a part of me that knew. And I remember I was freaking out because when they took me into the operating room and they got me on the table, which was kind of freaky because they have to lift you. My son's dad, it was like 10 minutes later, and I'm sitting there like, where is he? Where's my son's dad? And they said, well, he's getting dressed. He'll be in here in just a second. And I heard the doctor come in, all the nurses, and I started freaking out. And then finally he shows up. and he's holding my hand, and they start operating on me, and I just remember I hated the feeling of them pulling on me. It made my stomach hurt. It made me nauseous. Actually, after he came out, I started throwing up. Like, it was, because it just felt like somebody was like doing CPR on my stomach, like just pressing and pressing on my stomach. And I had a weak stomach at this point, as it was. And I remember he came out. I could hear him crying. I looked at my son's dad and I said, "Do you hear that?" And it was the best sound I'd ever heard in my whole life. They pulled down the sheet and they held up my baby, and they're just like, "Here's your baby." And I started crying hysterically. I look over at my son's dad, and I could tell he was sitting there, on the edge of his seat, going like this, back and forth. I said, "It's okay." I let go of his hand. I said, "Go see your son." So he went, because all I could see was when they pulled him into that little basket thing that they clean him up in. All I remember was I saw his feet. These tiny little baby feet. He actually had pretty big feet for a baby, but he had these tiny little baby feet. So they cleaned him off, they wrapped him up, and they handed him to his dad. And I was so mad because I wanted to hold him first. And all I could see was about this much of his face. And my son's dad wouldn't move him to where he couldn't move him to where I could see him. And so I didn't get to see him until after he came out. And I just remember looking at him and thinking, "Oh my gosh, he fit in there? Look at his hair, look at his eyes, look at his nose." He was just the cutest little kid. The cutest baby I've ever seen. And I could not believe that I had made this beautiful human being. I have to kind of hurry because my phone's dying. But we went home. I was in there for 3 days. They wanted to send me home after 2 because I was doing great. I was up walking. I did everything I was supposed to. And about a week later, after I came home from the hospital, I still wasn't feeling good. And I was having a lot of back pain, like a lot of back pain. I developed a fever. I started throwing up. So I went back to the hospital, and they thought I had pneumonia and all this crazy stuff. And when I got home, they said they found out I had a UTI, and they sent me home with antibiotic pills. They called me back 4 hours later, and they said, "You have sepsis. The infection has spread to your blood. You need to come get on IV antibiotics." And I was in the hospital on Levaquin for 3 days when my son was a week old. That was the hardest week of my life. They also ended up having to give me blood because I remember hearing the doctor say she lost a little bit of blood. A little bit of blood. They wanted to give me 2 pints of blood. And when I was pregnant, my iron was awesome. So I literally went from having perfect iron to, I had like a 12, I think, when I was pregnant, and it going all the way down to about a 6. No, I was barely a 5. My iron was barely at a 5. So I was in the hospital for 3 days, and that was literally the worst 3 days of my entire life. I mean, that's a very condensed version of this story. But I did this one round, and I kept saying like and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't want to make it any longer. So I'm going to try doing this condensed version, just giving everybody the short version, even though I have no subscribers. Not even my loving fiance has subscribed to my channel yet. But I really wanted to share my story. If you guys like my channel, or if you guys have any requests, please comment them down in the comment section below. Please consider subscribing. I'm just starting this channel out, and I'm really, really, really excited about it. There's a lot more things I want to do. I'm just trying to think of ideas. Hopefully I can do, if you see my first video about meeting my biological dad, started up controversy. There's a whole thing about it afterward, but I'm not taking it down, and I stand by everything that I said. But I digress. Hopefully I'll be doing a video with my brother soon. It's just I do work full time, so I don't have very much time, and I don't have very much time without my child. So anyway, if you guys like this video, please like and subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Thanks so much. Bye.